People ask me why I still do it. 7 years of the same routine, same message, same voice cutting through the dark every single night at precisely 2:45 a.m. They think I've gone mad. Maybe they're right. But let me tell you something about routine. It's the only thing keeping some of us tethered to sanity. When everything you love gets stripped away in a single moment, when the world proves itself to be far stranger and more terrible than you ever imagined, routine becomes armor. It becomes prayer. It becomes the difference between waking up each morning and simply not waking up at all. My name is James Clark. I'm 52 years old and I live in a town called Mill Ridge, Ohio. Population 3,847. Or it was, back when we bothered counting. These days, nobody's quite sure anymore. People move away without warning. Families pack up in the middle of the night, leaving furniture, leaving memories, leaving everything behind like they're fleeing a house fire. Can't say I blame them. I stay because someone has to. Someone has to keep the watch. Someone has to remember what happened here, what's still happening here, but will keep happening until people finally understand that some mornings aren't paranoia, they're survival. You ever notice how we take safety for granted? How we assume that going to sleep means we'll wake up, that closing our eyes doesn't invite something worse than dreams. We lock our doors against human threats, but we never consider that some dangers don't need doors. Some dangers just need you to look. That's what I've learned. That's what cost me everything. I used to be normal. Had a wife who made the best coffee cake you've ever tasted. Had a son who collected baseball cards and could name every player in the National League by the time he was 8. Had a mortgage, a lawn that needed mowing every week in summer, a leaky bathroom faucet that kept needing to fix. Normal problems. Normal life. Donna used to joke that I worried too much. She'd laugh when I double-check the locks before bed, when I make sure Corey's window was latched tight. "Nothing's going to get us, James," she'd say, kissing my forehead like I was the child. "We're safe here." She was wrong. I learned that night in 1994. Learned it in the worst way possible. And I've spent every night since trying to make sure nobody else has to learn it the way I did. Because the thing about knowledge is that once you have it, once you've seen what hides in the spaces between heartbeats and streetlights, you can't unknow it. You can only carry it. You can only warn others. So yeah, I still do it. Every night. Same message. Same desperate hope that this time, someone will listen. Maybe you'll be the one who does. The equipment sits in what used to be our dining room. 3 megaphones mounted on tripods, aimed at different corners of town through open windows. A microphone, a timer, a generator backup in case the power fails, which it does more often than it should out here. Corey thinks I should upgrade the system. He's 17 now, understands technology in ways I never will. He suggested streaming the warnings online, setting up an automated system that wouldn't require me to wake up every single night. Smart kid. Gets that from his mother. But I can't do it. The warnings need a human voice. They need someone who remembers why they matter. Automation feels like surrender, like admitting that this is just how things are now, forever. I'm not ready for that. "Dad, you're going to wear yourself out," Corey said last Tuesday, watching me test the megaphone connections for the 100th time that week. He was doing homework at the kitchen table, algebra or calculus or whatever they're teaching juniors these days. "You barely sleep 4 hours a night." "I sleep enough," I told him, adjusting the angle on the western megaphone. It needed to cover the Parker house and the stretch of road past Miller's old gas station. The Parkers are new, moved in 3 months ago, still learning. "You don't." He set down his pencil and gave me that look, the one that says he's worried but trying not to show it. "Mom wouldn't want you running yourself into the ground like this." I stopped fiddling with the equipment. Hearing him talk about Donna still catches me off guard sometimes, even after all these years. He was 10 when it happened, old enough to remember her, young enough that the memories are starting to blur around the edges. Sometimes I catch him staring at her photo in the hallway, like he's trying to hold on to something that's slipping away. "Your mom would want people safe," I said finally. "That's what this is about." He didn't argue. Never does, really. Just goes quiet in that way that means he disagrees but loves me too much to push. Good kid. Best thing that came out of my marriage, and my whole life, if I'm being honest. But town's different than it was in '94. Quieter, more careful. Everyone has their routines now, their own survival strategies. The Hendersons haven't opened their curtains in 3 years. The Mallory family installed blackout shutters on every window, the kind that sealed tight enough to block out a nuclear flash. Old man Tibbs painted all his windows black from the inside, says it helps him sleep. We've all adapted. We've all built our own armor against the night. But new people keep coming. They see the cheap property values, the listings that sound too good to be true. They don't ask why. Or they do ask, and they get vague answers from the realtor who lives 2 towns over and has never spent a night in No Ridge. They think the warnings are local color, some quirky small-town tradition. They smile and nod and figure they'll deal with the weird neighbor's loudspeaker problem later, until they learn. I've watched 6 families move in and out of the Preston house alone. Each one stays a few months, maybe half a year. Then they're gone, usually without a word. The for sale sign goes back up. The cycle continues. Corey helps me with the broadcast now. He checks the generator fuel levels, makes sure the backup battery system is charged. He's taken on responsibilities that no 17-year-old should have to shoulder. But that's what happens when you grow up in a place like this. You grow up faster than you should. You learn that the world operates on rules that most people never have to think about. You learn that some nights, the only thing standing between you and horror is a father's voice crackling through megaphones at 2:45 a.m., reminding you to keep your eyes closed and your blinds drawn. Tonight will be night 2,557 since I started this. I'm already tired. The Parkers invited me over for coffee last Saturday. Nice gesture, though I could tell Mrs. Parker, Angela, she insists I call her, was hoping I'd explain why their neighbor broadcasts emergency warnings through megaphones every single night. Their house still had that new occupant smell. Fresh paint covering whatever stains the previous family left behind. Boxes in corners they hadn't gotten around to unpacking. A child's drawing on the refrigerator, held up by magnets shaped like fruit. Normal. Temporary. We were wondering, Angela started, pouring coffee in the mismatched mugs, about the announcements. Are they part of some county alert system? Her husband, Derek, sat across from me with his hands folded on the table, posture of a man trying to be polite while deeply annoyed. They wake up our daughter. She's 6, hard enough getting her to sleep without... Keep your blinds closed, I said. All of them. Every window in the house. They exchanged a glance. That look couples give each other when they've decided someone's crazy but aren't sure how to handle it yet. Mr. Clark, Derek said slowly. We appreciate the neighborhood watch thing, but maybe there's a better way to... Do you have blackout curtains? What? On your windows. Do you have blackout curtains, or at least something thick? Not those sheer decorative ones. I pointed toward their living room, where afternoon sun filtered through white linen drapes. Those won't work. Angela's smile had frozen in place. Work for what, exactly? I should have left then. Should have recognized the futility of explaining. But something about the way their daughter's drawings covered that refrigerator, the way their whole life was spread out in cardboard boxes waiting to be unpacked, It made me try. "There's something wrong with this town," I said. "Has been for a long time. Most folks here know about it. We have ways of staying safe, rules we follow. The broadcasts are part of that. They remind people when it's most important to be careful." Derek stood up. "I think you should go. I'm trying to help you. By scaring our family? By making our daughter think there's some boogeyman outside?" His voice rose. "We moved here for a fresh start, for a safe place to raise Emma. We don't need paranoid neighbors filling our heads with, 'Your daughter's name is Emma.'" I don't know why that detail caught me. Maybe because Donna had wanted to name Corey that if he'd been a girl. Emma Rose. She'd had it picked out and everything. "Yes, and she doesn't need. Keep her away from windows after dark, please." I met his eyes. "I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to keep your family alive." They asked me to leave after that. Can't blame them. I sounded insane even to my own ears. How do you explain something that requires experience to believe? How do you make someone understand that the world they think they know has exceptions, loopholes, predators that don't fit any taxonomy? Walking home, I passed old Tibbs working in his yard. He'd seen me coming out of the Parker house, gave me a knowing shake of his head. "New ones never listen," he called out. "Not until it's too late." Had to try. Your wife tried too, remember? He pulled a weed from his flower bed with more force than necessary. Tried to warn the Sullivans back in '93. They thought she was hysterical. Didn't even last the month. I did remember. Donna had cried after the Sullivans left, after what happened to their son. She blamed herself for not explaining it better, for not making them understand. I'd held her in our kitchen, told her it wasn't her fault, but some people needed to learn the hard way. Never thought we'd be the ones learning it the hard way. Never thought we'd become part of the statistics we were trying to prevent. "You coming to the meeting next week?" Tibbs asked. "Town hall. We're voting on whether to put up warning signs at the county line." "What kind of signs?" "The Armus kind. Danger. Do not enter after dark. Maybe with some official-looking county seals so people take it seriously." He stood, brushed dirt from his knees. "Probably won't pass. Too many folks worried it'll hurt property values." "Property values," I repeated, as if anything mattered more than breathing. "World's full of fools, James. Always has been." He picked up his gardening tools. "Broadcast tonight as usual?" "Every night." "Good man." He headed toward his house with the painted black windows, the fortress he'd built against the dock. "You boy helping out?" "He always does." "You're raising him right. Teaching him what matters." Tibbs paused at his door. "Your wife would be proud." The words settled somewhere painful in my chest. I watched him disappear inside, listened to the multiple locks clicking into place even though it was barely 4 in the afternoon. Corey was home when I got back, making sandwiches in the kitchen. Growing boy, always hungry. We looked up when I walked in. "How'd it go with the Parkers?" "About how you'd expect." He nodded, understanding everything I didn't say. "Want a sandwich?" "Sure." We ate in comfortable silence, the kind you only get after years of shared grief. Outside, the afternoon was fading into evening. In a few hours, I'd start my preparations. In a few hours, I'd stand at my microphone and send my warnings into the night. And the Parkers would probably complain. And Emma would probably wake up. And I'd probably save their lives, without them ever knowing. The routine starts at 2:30 a.m. I don't need an alarm anymore. My body wakes itself. Some internal clock wound so tight it hasn't failed once in 7 years. First thing I do is check the generator. Fuel level, oil, battery connections, then the megaphones. Each one gets tested individually, volume adjusted to carry but not shatter eardrums. The western one needs to be louder, covers more distance, more houses. The eastern one can be softer, mainly residential, people sleeping with windows that face that direction. Corey usually sleeps through my preparations, but tonight I heard his door open around 2:40. He shuffled into the dining room wearing sweatpants and one of his school soccer shirts, hair sticking up on one side. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked. "Thought I heard something outside." He moved to the window, started to reach for the blinds. "Don't." His hand stopped midair. He knows better, but sometimes habit overrides training. Sometimes curiosity wins out over survival instinct. That's what gets people killed. "What did you hear?" I checked my watch. 2:43 a.m. Almost time. Footsteps, maybe, on the sidewalk. He backed away from the window, sat in the chair Donna used to occupy during family dinners. Back when we were a family. Back when we ate dinners. Could have been a dog. Could have been. We both knew it wasn't. The thing about living in Mill Ridge is you learn to distinguish sounds. Regular footsteps have a rhythm, a weight distribution that makes sense. What walks through our streets after dark moves differently. Sometimes too fast. Sometimes with pauses that last too long. Sometimes with a gait that sounds wrong, like joints bending in directions they shouldn't. I'd heard it plenty of times. That's why I started this whole thing. That's why Donna died. "Dad?" Corey's voice pulled me back. "You okay?" "Fine. Just tired." I positioned myself in front of the microphone. 2:44 a.m., 60 seconds. My son watched me with eyes that were too old for 17. He'd seen things no kid should see, lived through things that would have broken most adults. And still he stayed here. Still he helped me with this nightly vigil. Still he believed it mattered. "After I graduate," he said quietly, "I'm not leaving." "You should. College, somewhere far from here. Live a normal life. Someone needs to help you. I can manage alone. That's not what I mean." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "When you're gone, someone needs to keep doing this. Someone needs to remember." The weight of that statement hit me harder than it should have. I'd spent 7 years hoping he'd escape this place, build something better than watching his father scream warnings into the night. But he was right. Someone needed to remember. Someone needed to carry this forward. 2:45 a.m. I pressed the broadcast button. "This is an emergency alert for all residents of Mill Ridge." My voice echoed across the town, bouncing off houses and empty streets. It is now 2:45 a.m. In 15 minutes, between the hours of 3 a.m. and 3:30 a.m., do not look outside your windows. Keep all blinds and curtains closed. Do not respond to voices calling your name. Do not open your doors. Do not investigate sounds coming from outside your home. Stay inside. Stay away from windows. This is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. I let it play twice, the message looping through the megaphones. Some people complained about the repetition, but I'd learned that once wasn't enough. People needed to hear it multiple times for it to sink in, for it to override whatever instinct told them to look, to check, to verify. When the broadcast ended, I started the timer. In 15 minutes, I'd do it again. Then again at 3 o'clock. Then 3:15. Then a final one at 3:30, announcing the all clear. Corey hadn't moved from his chair. "Remember when we used to have family game nights?" he asked suddenly. "Before everything happened." "Yeah. You always won at Monopoly. Because you and Mom would team up against me and I'd still beat you both." A small smile crossed his face, bare and gone like a match flame. She'd get so competitive about it. Remember when she flipped the board because I bought Park Place? I did remember. Donna laughing so hard she cried, fake angry at losing to a 10-year-old. The three of us on the floor picking up fake money and property cards, arguing about whether the game counted if the board got flipped. Simple times, normal problems. "She wouldn't want you staying here," I said. "She'd want you somewhere safe." "Nowhere's safe, Dad. You taught me that." He stood, stretched. "Might as well be here, where I know what I'm dealing with." Before I could respond, we heard it. A knock at the front door. Soft, polite. The kind of knock a neighbor might make when returning a borrowed tool. We both went completely still. "Mr. Clark?" A woman's voice, muffled through the door. "James? Are you awake? I need help." I recognized the voice. Angela Parker, our new neighbor who'd kicked me out of her house 6 days ago. "James, please. Something's wrong with Emma. She won't wake up and I don't know what to do. Please. I know you're awake. I can see your lights on. Please help us." Corey looked at me, a question in his eyes. I checked my watch. 2:53 a.m. 7 minutes until 3 a.m. "My husband went to get the car running." Angela's voice continued. "But Emma needs help now. Please. I know we were rude before. I'm sorry. Just please help my daughter." The desperation in her voice sounded real. The fear sounded authentic. Everything about it sounded exactly like a mother terrified for her child's life. That's what made it so effective. "Dad?" Corey whispered. "Stay here." I moved toward the hallway away from the door. "Don't respond. Don't open anything." "But what if it's really her?" "It's not." "How do you know?" Because I'd heard this before. Because on the night Donna died, I'd heard my mother's voice calling from outside, even though my mother had been dead for 3 years. Because this is what it does. This is how it works. "James, please." Angela's voice rose, cracking with panic. "She's turning blue. I think she's dying. Please, you have to help us." My hands were shaking. Even knowing what I knew, even having lived through this before, the voice was convincing. Part of me wanted to open that door, wanted to help, wanted to be the kind of person who didn't leave a child to die. But Emma wasn't dying. Emma was probably asleep in her bed, safe behind whatever inadequate curtains her parents had hung. And the thing outside our door wasn't Angela Parker. "I can hear you in there," the voice said, softer now. "I know you're listening. Please, James, don't let my baby die. Don't let her die like Donna did." Corey sucked in a breath. I grabbed his arm, held him in place. "Ignore it. How does it know about Mom?" "It knows everything. That's part of what makes it dangerous." The knocking started again, harder this time, insistent. The doorknob rattled like someone was testing whether it was locked. It was locked. It was always locked. But locks only worked if you didn't open them from the inside. 2:59 a.m. I moved back to the microphone, prepared to start the next broadcast. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. "James Clark," the thing outside said. And this time, the voice wasn't Angela's anymore. This time it was Donna's voice. Donna's exact inflection. The way she said my name when she was worried about something. "James, honey. It's me. Let me in. I've been trying to get home for so long. Please let me in. I miss you. I miss Corey. I want to come home." Corey made a sound like something breaking inside him, and I pressed the broadcast button, flooding the night with warnings that came 7 years too late to save the woman whose voice was calling us to our deaths. 3 a.m. The voice at the door continued for another 8 minutes. Donna's voice, perfect in every detail, the way she'd emphasize certain syllables when she was upset, the slight Ohio accent that came through on certain words. Even the breathing pattern between sentences matched exactly. Corey sat with his back against the wall, hands pressed over his ears, eyes squeezed shut. I kept broadcasting, kept my voice steady, even as I listened to my dead wife begging to be let inside. At 3:08 a.m., it stopped. Not gradually, not a fade out, just silence, like someone had cut a wire mid-sentence. I waited another 5 minutes before speaking. "It's moving on." Corey lowered his hand slowly. His face was wet with tears. He hadn't let me see him cry. Was that really her voice? Or was I just remembering wrong? It was exact. I shut down the broadcast equipment, began the post-check routine. Cables, connections, generator fuel, keeping my hands busy so I wouldn't think about what had just happened. It can replicate anything. Voices, mannerisms, specific memories. That's what makes it effective. How? I don't know. I checked the battery backup system. Nobody knows. We just know what it does. Did you hear her that night? When she died. I'd never told him the full story. He'd been 10, traumatized, barely able to process that his mother was gone. I'd given him a sanitized version, told him there'd been an accident, that she'd gone outside during the danger hours, that something had happened too fast for anyone to stop. But he was 17 now. He'd earned the truth. "Yeah," I said. "I heard her. Will you tell me about it?" I sat down in the chair across from him, suddenly exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with lost sleep. "You sure you want to know?" "I need to know." So I told him. It was September 1994. We lived in Mill Ridge for 6 years by then. Moved here when I got a job at the manufacturing plant 20 miles north. Nice quiet town, good schools, affordable housing, everything young parents look for when they're starting out. We'd heard rumors, of course. Small towns always have their ghost stories, their urban legends. People talked about staying inside after dark, about keeping windows covered, about the string of disappearances that happened every few years. But it was vague, whispered, the kind of thing you found away as local superstition. Until the Henderson's son went missing. Mark Henderson was 14, good kid, played trumpet in the school band, helped his dad with yard work every weekend. One morning in August, his parents woke up to find his bedroom window open and Mark gone. They searched for 3 days. Police, volunteers, search dogs, nothing. They found him on the 4th day, 2 miles outside town. I won't describe what they found. Some details you can't scrub from your memory no matter how hard you try. The police called it an animal attack. Wild dogs, they said. Maybe a bear, though bears were rare in that part of Ohio. They told everyone to be careful, to keep garbage sealed, to not walk alone after dark. But the Henderson family left town the day after the funeral, packed up everything in less than a week and moved to Cleveland. Didn't say goodbye to anyone. That's when people started talking more openly. Old Tibbs held a meeting at his house, invited everyone who'd lived in Mill Ridge longer than a decade. Your mom and I went, curious more than concerned. We still thought there was a rational explanation. Tibbs told us the history, said there'd been incidents in Mill Ridge going back to the 1960s, maybe earlier. People going missing, bodies found in conditions that didn't match any known predator, families leaving without explanation. Always the same pattern. Someone would go outside between 3 and 3:30 a.m. and they'd never come back. Or they'd come back wrong. There's something here, Tibbs said. Something that hunts. We don't know what it is, but we know when it's active, and we know how to stay safe. The rules were simple. Keep all windows covered after dark. Never look outside during the danger hours. Never respond to voices calling from outside, no matter how familiar they sound. Never open doors between 3 and 3:30 a.m. for any reason. Some people laughed, called it ridiculous, said Tibbs was a paranoid old man trying to scare newcomers. Your mother wasn't sure what to believe. She was practical, skeptical of anything she couldn't see or measure, but she was also cautious. Can't hurt to be careful, she said on the drive home. Even if it's nonsense, what's the harm in keeping blinds closed? So we followed the rules, installed heavy curtains, made sure you understood to never look outside at night, kept our doors locked. It became routine. Weeks passed, then months. Nothing happened. Life went on. Then came February 12th. I'd been working late, inventory night at the plant. Got home around 2:30 a.m., exhausted, just wanting to sleep. Your mom was awake, reading in bed. She asked how work went. I told her it was fine. Normal conversation, normal night. At 2:55 a.m., we heard your voice calling from outside. You were asleep in your room. We checked. You were there, safe, covers pulled up to your chin, breathing steadily. But we could still hear your voice outside. Crying, saying you were lost, saying you couldn't find the door, asking us to please turn on the lights so you could see. Your mom's hand tightened on my arm. It's not him, she whispered. It's not him, right? No. He's asleep. But the voice was so accurate. Every inflection, every little boy fear, every detail perfect. It called for her specifically. Mama, please. I'm scared. I can't see. Please turn on the lights. I held her, told her not to look, not to respond, that we just needed to wait it out. 25 minutes. We could do 25 minutes. The voice changed tactics after a while. Started talking about things only you would know. That stuffed bear you'd lost at the county fair 2 summers before. The secret fort you'd built in the woods behind the school. The nickname you had for your kindergarten teacher. How does it know these things? Your mom's voice was shaking. How can it know? I didn't have an answer. At 3:15 a.m., the voice changed again. This time it was my father. My father who'd died when I was 16, who I hadn't thought about in years. His voice came through that window, exact and clear. James, you're making a mistake. The boy's really out there. You're going to let your son die because you're too much of a coward to check. What kind of father are you? Your mother pulled away from me. We should look. just to make sure. No. What if it's really him? What if somehow it's not? But doubt had crept in. I could see it in her eyes. The logical part of her brain knew you were asleep down the hall. But the mother part, the part that would do anything to protect her child, that part was screaming at her to check, to verify, to make absolutely certain. "I'll just peek," she said, moving toward the window, "just to prove it's not him." I tried to stop her, grabbed her arm, pulled her back, told her she couldn't, that looking was exactly what it wanted. "Don't be ridiculous," she said, and there was an edge to her voice I'd never heard before. "I'm not going to sit here while my son might be dying outside." "What's wrong with you?" She pulled away from me, went to the window and opened the blinds. I saw her face change, saw recognition, then confusion, then absolute horror flood her features. She made a sound, not quite a scream, more like all the air being forced from her lungs at once. "Donna, close it. Close it now." But she just stood there, staring. Her hand reached for the window lock. "It's not what you think," she whispered. "It's not. James, it's..." I yanked her away from the window, slammed the blind shut, pulled her back to the bed. She was shaking violently, pupils dilated so wide I could barely see any color in her eyes. "What did you see?" She wouldn't answer, just kept shaking her head, making that sane, airless sound. At 3:30 a.m., the danger period ended. I held your mother until sunrise, and she never said a word about what she'd seen through that window. Never described it. Never explained what had made her try to unlock the latch. 3 nights later, she walked out the front door at 3:07 a.m. while I was asleep. I woke up to the door standing open, ran outside calling her name, found her 20 feet from the house in the middle of our front yard. She was already dead when I reached her. Corey hadn't moved during my entire story. When I finished, he asked the question I'd been dreading for 7 years. What did it do to her? I don't know exactly. The coroner's report said multiple traumas, internal injuries consistent with... I stopped. It doesn't matter. What matters is she's gone because she looked, because she opened the blinds. But why did she go outside 3 days later? I think once you see it, once you make eye contact, it gets inside your head somehow, plants something, makes you want to go to it. I rub my eyes. That's why the rules are so specific. Don't look. Ever. Have you ever seen it? No. And I never will. We sat in silence as dawn crept through the covered windows. Another night survived. Another broadcast complete. But in the back of my mind, a new fear was growing. Corey was 17, helping me every night, taking on responsibilities that put him near windows, near danger. One mistake. That's all it would take. One moment of carelessness. One accidental glance. I'd already lost Donna. I couldn't lose him, too. 3 weeks passed. Spring was coming early that year, bringing warm afternoons that made it easy to forget what walked through town once the sun went down. Corey had started taking on more of the broadcast duties. He'd memorized the equipment checks, knew which megaphone needed which volume adjustment, could troubleshoot the generator faster than I could. Sometimes I'd wake up at 2:30 and find him already in the dining room, running through the preparation sequence. "You don't have to do this every night," I told him one morning over breakfast. "I can handle it." "I know." He poured orange juice, offered me the carton. "But I want to help. Besides, you need to sleep." He wasn't wrong. I'd started dozing off during the day, nodding off in my chair while watching television. 7 years of fractured sleep was catching up with me. My hands shook more than they used to. I developed a persistent ache behind my eyes that never quite went away. "After I'm gone," I started, but he cut me off. "Don't. We need to talk about it eventually. Not today." He grabbed his backpack, headed for the door. "I've got that calc test third period. Don't wait up." The house felt too quiet after he left. I wandered through rooms that used to hold more life, more laughter. Donna's reading chair still sat by the window in what used to be our bedroom. I'd never been able to get rid of it. Sometimes I'd sit there and try to remember what her voice sounded like when it wasn't coming from the other side of the door, asking to be let in. The phone rang around noon. Angela Parker. "Mr. Clark, I owe you an apology." Her voice was tired, strained. "You tried to warn us, and we didn't listen." "What happened?" "Nothing. Yet. But." She paused, and I heard a child's voice in the background, Emma asking for lunch. "Derek heard something last night. Around 3. He got up to check, started walking toward the window. I had to physically pull him back." "Did he look outside?" "No. I stopped him in time. But Mr. Clark, he wanted to look. He was angry at me for stopping him. Angrier than I've ever seen him." Her voice dropped lower. "He's at work now, acting like nothing happened. But I can't shake the feeling that something's different. Like part of him is still angry. Still wants to look." I'd seen this before. The compulsion didn't always require direct eye contact. Sometimes proximity was enough. Sometimes just being too close to a window during the danger hours created a pull, a nagging curiosity that burrowed into your thoughts. "Keep him away from windows," I said. "All hours, not just at night. And watch for changes. If he starts acting withdrawn, if he starts sleeping, if he seems fixated on specific times. What do I do if that happens?" I didn't have a good answer. The Henderson family had left town. The Sullivan boy who'd looked in 93 had needed professional help, spent 6 months in the psychiatric facility. Some people recovered. Some didn't. "Leave," I said finally. "Pack up and leave before it gets worse. We can't just uproot our lives because of some..." She stopped herself. "I'm sorry. I know you're trying to help. It's just hard to accept that this is real." "I know." After we hung up, I found myself thinking about the early days. When Donna and I first heard the stories, first started following the rules. How easy it had been to dismiss, to rationalize. How quickly that changed once you witnessed something that broke every rule you thought governed reality. Corey came home around 4, dropped his backpack in the hallway, collapsed onto the couch. "Test was brutal. Pretty sure I failed the last 3 problems." "You've never failed anything in your life." "It's the first time for everything." I grabbed the remote, started flipping through channels. Normal teenager stuff. Normal afternoon. "Hey, you remember that college I was looking at? The one in Pennsylvania? The engineering program?" "Yeah, they sent an acceptance letter today." He didn't look at me, kept his eyes on the television. "Full scholarship. Starts in September." Something cold settled in my stomach. "That's great. Really great. I'm not going." "Corey, Someone needs to be here. You can't do this alone forever." He finally looked at me and I saw Donna in his eyes. That same stubborn determination, that refusal to abandon something important just because it was difficult. "We've been over this. Your mom would want you to go." "Mom's dead." He said it flatly, without emotion. "She'd want a lot of things, but she's not here to want anything anymore." The harshness of it stung, but I understood. He'd spent 7 years learning to live with absence, with a hole Donna's death had carved into our family. He built walls around that grief, developed armor that let him function. Sentimentality was a luxury he couldn't afford. "At least think about it," I said. "You don't have to decide now." "Already decided." We didn't talk much the rest of the afternoon. I made spaghetti for dinner, and we ate while watching some action movie neither of us cared about. The routine of it was comforting. Father and son, sharing a meal, pretending everything was normal. At 2:15 a.m., I woke to the sound of the generator running. Corey had already started the broadcast preparations. I found him in the dining room, checking connections with the focused attention he usually reserved for calculus homework. "Couldn't sleep," he said before I could ask. "Figured I'd get a head start." "You okay?" "Fine. Just thinking." He adjusted the Western megaphone, tested the angle. "Do you ever wonder what it is? Like, what species or category or whatever?" "Sometimes. Doesn't change what we have to do, though." "I know. But don't you want to understand it? Figure out where it came from, why it's here?" "Understanding doesn't make it less dangerous." "Maybe. Or maybe understanding is how we beat it." He finished his checks, sat in his usual chair. "There has to be a way to stop it. To actually fix this instead of just hiding from it every night. If there was a way, someone would have found it by now. Or everyone who tried died before they could tell anyone." He looked at me and there was something fierce in his expression. "Maybe we're going about this wrong. Maybe the broadcasts aren't enough. They keep people alive, but they don't solve the problem. It's still out there, still hunting. And as long as it is, people are going to keep dying." He stood, paced to the window, careful to stay away from the glass. "There has to be more we can do." I'd had these same thoughts for 7 years. Ideas about tracking it, studying it, finding its patterns or weaknesses. But every plan crashed against the same reality. You couldn't fight something you couldn't look at. You couldn't study something that killed you for trying. "Focus on what we can control," I said. "The broadcasts, the warnings. That's what we help. It's not enough. That's what we have." He didn't argue, but I could tell he wasn't satisfied. He had Donna's intelligence, her need to understand and fix problems rather than just endure them. It had gotten her killed. I was terrified it would do the same to him. 2:45 a.m. arrived. I gave the broadcast, the same words I'd spoken 2,573 times before. The message echoed across Millridge, carrying its warning into bedrooms and living rooms, reminding people to close their eyes, to trust the routine, to survive one more night. The thing outside walked its circuit like always. I heard footsteps on the sidewalk, that peculiar rhythm that made my skin crawl. Heard it pause at our house for longer than usual, as if it knew we were awake, as if it could sense our presence through the walls. At 3:08 a.m., it knocked on our door. "James." Donna's voice again. Always her voice. "Please let me in. It's cold out here. I just want to come home." Corey's hands clenched into fists. "I made a mistake," the voice continued. "I shouldn't have looked. But I can't undo it now. All I can do is ask you to forgive me, to let me see you one more time. Please stop," Corey whispered, so quiet I almost didn't hear him. "I miss you both so much. I miss our family. I miss the way Corey would laugh at my terrible jokes. I miss making coffee cake on Sunday mornings. I miss everything." I wanted to cover my ears, to run to the back of the house where I couldn't hear her voice, but leaving the equipment unattended during the danger hours felt wrong, felt like abandoning my post. "Just open the door, James. Just for a second. Let me see your face. That's all I want. That's all I've ever wanted since that night." The doorknob rattled. "Let me see my son. He's grown so much. I missed his whole life. I missed everything. Please don't make me miss anything else." At 3:30 a.m., the voice stopped. Silence flooded back in. So complete, it felt like pressure against my eardrums. I gave the all-clear broadcast, shut down the equipment, and found Corey sitting with his head in his hands. "I hate this," he said. "I hate hearing her voice. I hate that we can't even go outside our own house. I hate that she's dead and we're alive, and nothing ever changes." I sat next to him, put my arm around his shoulders. He leaned into me the way he used to when he was small, when nightmares would wake him and only his father's presence could chase them away. "We'll get through tonight," I said, "and then tomorrow night, and the night after that. One night at a time." "For how long?" "For as long as it takes." We sat there until dawn began to gray the covered windows. Another night survived, another broadcast complete, another 24 hours stolen from the thing that wanted to take everything from us. I thought about Corey's college acceptance, about the life he could have away from here, away from the nightly terror and the voice of his dead mother begging to be let inside. But I also thought about what would happen when I was gone. Who would give the warnings? Who would maintain the equipment? Who would remember why it mattered? Maybe he was right. Maybe someone did need to carry this forward. I just wish that someone didn't have to be my son. Tuesday started wrong. I should have paid attention to that. Corey overslept, which never happened. Stumbled out of his room at 7:45, looking like he hadn't slept at all. Dark circles under his eyes, hair uncombed. He grabbed a granola bar from the pantry, mumbled something about being late for first period, and was out the door before I could ask if he was okay. I spent the morning worrying. Pulled out photo albums I hadn't looked at in years, found pictures of Corey at 7, at 10, at 13. Growing up in snapshots, every image a reminder of time passing, of how quickly childhood vanishes into something harder. Found a photo of the three of us at Cedar Point. Corey must have been 9, gap-toothed smile, holding a stuffed animal he'd won at one of those rigged carnival games. Donna had her arm around both of us, laughing at something I'd said. We looked happy. We looked like people who thought the worst thing that could happen was a ride breaking down, or rain canceling our plans. I put the albums away before I could spiral further. Derek Parker showed up around 2 o'clock. I saw him through the peephole, standing on my porch like he was gathering courage. Took him 3 tries to actually knock. "Mr. Clark, I need to talk to you." He looked worse than his wife had sounded on the phone. Thinner, tired, something frantic around the edges. I let him in, offered coffee he didn't drink. "Angela told you what happened," he said, not a question. "About me at the window." "Yeah." I can't stop thinking about it. About looking outside. He gripped his knees, knuckles white. It's like an itch I can't scratch. Every night I wake up around 3 and I have to fight the urge to get up, to go to a window, to just peek for 1 second. You're fighting it. That's good. That's what you have to keep doing. But what if I can't? His voice cracked. What if one night I'm too tired to fight it? What if I do the Emma what? He stopped himself. Angela wants to leave, pack up, move somewhere else, start over. You should. I can't walk away from my job. We can't afford to just pick up and go without another position lined up somewhere. And who's going to hire me if I quit without notice? He laughed, bitter and sharp. It's insane. I'm trapped here because of a mortgage and a resume gap. I didn't know what to tell him. Practical concerns didn't stop when reality turned sideways. Bills still came. Job still mattered. You could know something was hunting you and still worry about making rent. Keep the windows covered, I said. All of them. All the time. And if the urge gets stronger, if you find yourself standing near windows without remembering how you got there, leave immediately. Don't wait. Take your family and go. Job or no job. He nodded, but I could tell he wasn't listening. He had that look people get when they're already arguing with themselves, already negotiating which rules they can bend, which precautions they can skip. After he left, I checked our own windows. Every curtain, every blind, every shade. All secure. All doing their job of keeping the outside away from the inside. Corey came home around 5, still looking exhausted. He dropped his backpack, went straight to his room without a word. I heard his door close, heard the creak of his bed as he collapsed onto it. I should have checked on him, should have asked what was wrong, if something had happened at school, if he was sick. But I gave him space instead, figured he'd come out when he was ready to talk. At 7, I knocked on his door. "Corey, you want dinner?" "Not hungry." "You need to eat something." "I'll grab something later." I made spaghetti anyway, left a plate in the microwave for him, ate alone at the kitchen table, reading the newspaper without absorbing any of it. Outside, the sun was setting earlier than it should have. Clouds moving in, maybe. Storm coming. Around 9, Corey emerged long enough to grab his food, heat it up, and disappear back into his room. I caught a glimpse of his desk through the open door. Covered in papers, textbooks, his laptop open to something I couldn't read from that angle. "Big assignment due?" I called after him. "Something like that." The door closed again. I settled in to watch television. Some show about people renovating houses, normal people with normal problems. Paint colors and cabinet choices, the kind of concerns that seemed alien to me now. At 11:30, I did my nightly check, tested each lock on the doors, verified each window covering, made sure the generator had fuel, the battery backup was charged, the megaphones were positioned correctly. Everything was ready. I knocked on Corey's door. "Don't stay up too late. You need sleep." "I know. I'm serious. You look terrible this morning." "I'm fine, Dad. Just stressed about school stuff." "Okay. Love you." A pause, then quieter. "Love you too." I went to bed around midnight, set my internal alarm for 2:30, lay in the dark, listening to the house settle, the familiar creaks and groans of old wood and older foundations. Heard Corey's door open once, footsteps to the bathroom and back, heard his door close again. Sleep came eventually, that thin, restless kind where you're never quite under but never fully awake either. My eyes opened at 2:29 a.m., 1 minute before my usual wake time. Something felt off. I couldn't place it at first. The house was quiet. Nothing obviously wrong, but there was a quality to the silence that made my skin prickle. Some animal instinct screaming that danger was close, even though I couldn't identify the source. I got up, pulled on my robe, walked to the dining room. The equipment was fine. Generator ready, megaphones in position, everything as it should be. But that feeling wouldn't leave. That sense of something wrong, something missed. I walked through the house, checking. Kitchen secure, bathroom secure, my bedroom secure. The guest room we never used, also secure. Corey's door was closed. I pressed my ear against it, heard the sound of steady breathing. He was asleep. Everything was fine. I was just paranoid, anxious, letting 7 years of vigilance make me see threats where none existed. I went back to the dining room, sat down on my equipment. 2:43 a.m., 2 minutes until broadcast time. I ran through my mental checklist one more time. Generator, check. Megaphones, check. Microphone, check. Battery backup, check. Windows. Had I checked Corey's windows? I'd heard his door close, assumed he'd done his usual routine. He always checked his own windows before bed, had been doing it for years. It was automatic for him, as reflexive as brushing his teeth. But he'd been distracted today, tired, stressed about something. 2:44 a.m. I stood up, started walking toward his room, told myself I was being ridiculous. Corey knew the rules better than anyone. He wouldn't forget something that important. But I couldn't shake the feeling, couldn't shake the certainty that something tonight was different. Something tonight was wrong. I reached for his doorknob just as my watch ticked over to 2:45 a.m. Time to broadcast. I chose the broadcast. That's what I'll never forgive myself for. Standing there at 2:45 a.m., torn between checking Corey's room and starting the warning, I chose the broadcast. Told myself I'd check right after. Told myself 2 minutes wouldn't matter. I pressed the button, sent the message out across Mill Ridge like I'd done 2,586 times before. This is an emergency alert for all residents of Mill Ridge. It is now 2:45 a.m. In 15 minutes, between the hours of 3 a.m. and 3:30 a.m., do not look outside your windows. The words felt hollow in my mouth, automatic. I'd said them so many times they'd stop meaning anything, just sounds pushing back against the dark. The moment the broadcast finished, I went to Corey's door, opened it. His window blinds were up, not just raised, completely up, the kind of up that meant they'd been that way for hours. Streetlights spilled through the glass, painting his room in sickly yellow. And Corey was standing at the window, perfectly still, staring out into the night. Corey? He didn't move, didn't even blink. I crossed the room in 3 steps, grabbed his shoulder. His skin was cold beneath my hand, cold in the way that had nothing to do with the temperature. Corey, step away from the window. She's out there, he said. His voice was distant, dreamy. She's been waiting for me. Number. No, 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 no. Don't look at her. Whatever you're seeing, it's not real. I tried to pull him back, but he resisted, stronger than he should have been. Corey, listen to me. You need to look away, right now. She wants me to come outside, just for a minute. She says she has something to tell me, something important. He reached for the window latch. She says it's about forgiveness. I yanked him backward with everything I had. We both went down, crashed into his desk chair, papers scattered across the floor. I caught a glimpse of what he'd been working on. Research, articles about the town's history, missing persons reports going back decades. He'd been trying to understand it, to find patterns to solve the problem. He'd been so focused on understanding that he'd forgotten to close his blinds. Dead. Let go. He was fighting me now, trying to get up, trying to get back to the window. She's leaving. I need to go to her before she leaves. She's not your mother. I know what my own mother looks like. I held him down, my knee in his back, both arms pinned. He was 17, stronger than me in a fair fight, but I had surprise and desperation on my side. You looked at it. You made eye contact. That's what's making you want to go outside. You have to fight it. There's nothing to fight. I just want to talk to her. His voice was so calm it terrified me. Why won't you let me talk to my own mother? The clock on his nightstand read 2:58 a.m., 2 minutes until the danger window opened fully, 2 minutes before the creature would be at its strongest, before the compulsion would become overwhelming. We're going to wait this out, I said. Both of us, right here. And you're not going near that window again. But I knew it was futile, even as I said it. I'd seen what happened to people who looked. The Sullivan's boy who spent months in psychiatric care, who never fully recovered. The Henderson kid who went missing. Donna, who'd walked outside 3 days after looking, drawn by something she couldn't resist. The compulsion didn't fade. It grew. It festered. It won. I'm sorry, Corey said quietly. I forgot. I was so tired, and I forgot. And then she was there. And she looked so real, and I'm sorry, Dad. My throat closed. Tears I couldn't afford blurred my vision. It's okay. We'll figure this out, The front door opened. The sound froze us both. The click of the lock, the creak of hinges, the rush of night air into the house. I released Corey, scrambled to my feet, ran for the hallway. Donna stood in the doorway. She looked exactly as I remembered. Same honey-colored hair, same light dusting of freckles across her nose, same smile that had convinced me to marry her 20 years ago. She wore the nightgown she died in, though there was no blood, no signs of trauma. She looked perfect. She looked alive. James, she said. And it was her voice. Truly her voice. Not mimicked, but somehow extracted from my memory and made real. Thank you for taking such good care of our boy. You're not real. Doesn't matter. She stepped into the house and I finally saw what was behind her. The thing wearing my wife's face. I can't describe it properly. My mind refuses to hold the memory in any coherent way. I remember limbs, more than should be possible, articulated wrong. I remember something that moved like it was pulling itself through thick water, joints bending in directions that shouldn't exist. I remember the sound it made, a wet clicking that reminded me of insects in walls. But mostly, I remember the face, Donna's face, perfect and terrible, floating above something that had no right to exist. Corey, honey, she called. Come here. Come give your mother a hug." I heard movement behind me, turned to see Corey walking down the hallway, that same dreamy expression on his face, walking toward his death like it was Christmas morning. "No." I grabbed him, tried to pull him back. "Corey, stop. Please stop." "Let him go, James." Donna's voice was gentle, understanding. "You can't protect him forever. You couldn't protect me. You can't protect him. Let him go." Corey was stronger than me now, stronger than he should be, like something else was lending him power. He pulled free of my grip, kept walking. "Corey, please, please don't do this." He reached the doorway, reached his mother. She opened her arms to embrace him, and I saw the thing behind her shift, its massive limbs repositioning, preparing. I lunged forward, threw myself between them, tried to push my son back inside. The limbs struck faster than I could process. I felt them pierce me, felt something fundamentally wrong invading my body, felt heat and cold and pain that existed beyond physical sensation. Felt myself being pulled apart from the inside out. Heard Corey screaming. Felt him next to me, felt more limbs finding him, pulling him, breaking him. The last thing I saw was Donna's face, still smiling, still perfect. The last thing I heard was the 3 a.m. broadcast playing from the dining room, my own voice warning people to stay inside, to stay away from windows, to survive the night. The warning I'd given too late, to save the only person I had left to love. The broadcast stopped on April 15th. People noticed immediately. You don't spend 7 years hearing the same voice at the same time every night without feeling its absence. That first morning, when dawn came and James Clark's warnings hadn't echoed through the streets, everyone who'd lived in Millridge long enough knew something had gone wrong. Old Tibbs found them around 8 a.m. He'd walked over when James didn't answer his phone, when no one saw lights in the house, when the silence stretched past concerning into alarming. He found the front door standing open, found what was left in the yard. The funeral was private, closed casket. Most of the town came anyway, standing in the parking lot of Morrison Funeral Home because the chapel couldn't hold everyone. People who'd complained about the broadcasts, people who'd called James paranoid, people who'd lived safe and oblivious while one man sacrificed his sleep, his health, his sanity to keep them alive. They buried father and son together, in the plot next to Donna, 3 graves in a row. A family reunited by the thing that had torn them apart. Angela Parker left town the same day, packed up Emma, left Derek a note and drove 6 hours to her mother's house in Indiana. Derek filed for divorce from a distance, never set foot in Millridge again. Last anyone heard, he'd moved to Arizona. It didn't matter. The damage was done. He'd stood too close, looked too long. Eventually, the compulsion found him anyway. They found him in a hotel room in Phoenix 3 months later. Walked off a 7th-floor balcony in the middle of the night. The police report said suicide, but people who knew the signs recognized it for what it was. The Clark house sat empty through the summer. The generator ran out of fuel. The megaphones gathered dust. The equipment that had sent warnings across the town for 2,587 nights went silent and stayed that way. Other families tried to fill the gap. The Hendersons bought a bullhorn, took turns making announcements, but they didn't have James's dedication, his precision. They'd forget nights, oversleep, skip broadcasts when they were tired or sick, or just couldn't face it anymore. After 6 weeks, they stopped trying. A petition went around town hall to install an automated system, digital speakers that could play recorded warnings. They got 73 signatures and died in committee. Too expensive. too difficult to maintain. Too much acknowledgement that something was fundamentally wrong with Mill Ridge, Ohio. New families moved in through the fall. Real estate agents from neighboring towns made good commissions on houses that sold for a third of what they should. Young couples, retirees, people looking for affordable housing in a quiet community. The for sale sign came down from the Parker house. A family with 3 children under 10 moved in during October. They asked their neighbors about the weird hooks in the windows where the previous owners had mounted something. No one told them the truth. No one wanted to be the crazy person, the one who scared away the newcomers with stories that sounded like bad horror movies. The children made friends at school. The parents joined the PTA. The family settled in, unpacked their boxes, hung pictures on walls, made a home in a house that should have stayed empty. On November 3rd, the youngest child went missing. 7 years old, vanished from his bedroom sometime between 2 and 4 in the morning. They found him 3 days later, 2 miles outside town. The coroner said wild animal, possibly coyotes, possibly a dog pack, possibly something they didn't have a name for. The family left before Thanksgiving, put the house up for sale the same week, moved back to wherever they'd come from, traumatized and broken, joining the long list of people who learned Mill Ridge's secret the hard way. The sign went back up. For sale. Great starter home. Price to move. Someone will buy it eventually. Someone always does. The nights in Mill Ridge stay quiet now. No voices cutting through the dark. No warnings echoing off houses and streets. The windows stay uncovered. The doors stay unlocked. People sleep through the danger hours, unaware or uncaring, until they learn what walks among them. James Clark spent 7 years trying to save a town that never fully believed him. Spent 7 years broadcasting warnings that most people ignored or resented. Died trying to protect the one person he loved most, and the world that had already taken everything else. Some nights, if you're awake at 2:45 a.m. and listening carefully, older residents swear they can still hear his voice. A ghost of a warning, an echo of protection, too faint to understand but impossible to forget. But most people don't hear it. Most people sleep through the danger hours, dreaming safely, until they don't. Until they see a face in the window that looks familiar. Until they hear a voice calling their name. Until they make the same mistake that everyone else has made, thinking they're different, thinking they're safe, thinking the rules don't apply to them. The broadcasts are gone, but the thing they warned against, that's still here. That will always be here. Welcome to Mill Ridge, Ohio. Population declining.